welcome back to my channel. Amy here with the Organized Hobbit. Back in October, the beginning of October, finished my Hobonichi and I couldn't be happier. I did a little vote on Instagram and asked you guys if you wanted to see a speed a speed video of the whole thing being flipped through, or do it in real time with me talking over it. Majority of the votes wanted me to do real time, so that is what I'm going to do. I will mention there's a little bit of a long intro just with a few things that I want to mention before I start. So if you want to skip a few minutes, go ahead, but just keep in mind there is some information in there that pertains to things I will say while I'm in the video. One of them being that when I was doing this, I basically did it in two sections. Anything that was like the daily page, so anything that was just like day on it, was done with portraits or full form art, anatomy, that kind of thing. Anything else, so like the monthlies, the weeklies, the extra pages in the back, that was a free-for-all. I could be as creative as I wanted, do patterns, do layouts. Those were kind of like my setups for when I was working on several pages at a time in here, because I have a full-time job. You know, sometimes I don't want to draw every day, but my goal was to draw more, to draw quicker. So that, just keep that in mind. The other thing was that on days where I was having a really hard time getting an inspiration down, one of my methods is to recreate a piece of art that isn't in my normal wheelhouse. This is something that's not my norm. So there's a few in here that were directly copied or pretty much copied but changed to be in my sort of style, just to get me through, and I will mention those. I want to be completely transparent. This sketchbook was for me, to get me to draw every single day and to have this entire sketchbook done within a year, which is, I mean, it's 500 plus pages, so that's more than a page a day if you think about it in long form. And I mean, granted, some were quick sketches, some were fully formed paintings, but for me, it was about the process. I don't just work on one sketchbook at a time, and in the upcoming videos with what I'm using series that I have coming up, you will kind of get to see my process a little bit more in the upcoming year. That was one of the things that I wanted to work on. Last but not least, I want to shoot a big thank you to the people at the Hobonichi group. You all were super supportive about me finishing this up, and I couldn't be more grateful. So big thank you to everybody who was there. If you were there, shoot a little comment and let me know, and then I'll give it a thumbs up and all that jazz. But yeah, anyway, so let's get to it. I'm really excited because I decided to wait a few weeks or so. Like, it's been almost a month and a half since finishing this, and I just wanted to kind of give me some time after doing it before I went back in. And I'm really excited. Like I said, the beginning here was all just me doing whatever I wanted, and then I got into the portraits in the actual daily pages. And I did a lot of flowers and swatching on these pages because I was in kind of, you'll see it coming up in a minute. I wanted to start with a very specific palette of colors, and then I decided to try different mediums on this, because if I was going to commit to using Hobonichi the next year, then I wanted to kind of be able to test other mediums. So there's a lot of different types of watercolors on here. There's a lot of pen, a lot of inks. And it's really funny because this is not my typical kind of art at all. I painted very wet flowers over here. You can kind of see where they were, the leaves. And then I smushed the book together. I wanted to just create, see what would happen. I didn't worry as much about the outcomes. You know, this was again the same thing. Did some flowers and then smushed it together. There was a lot of these too. These were what I like to call palette cleanouts. So if I had paint left on my palette, I would do just like a little bit of a swatch with them. Again, another one of them. One of my favorite things on here. I really liked this one out, how the theme of colors worked with these two pages. I just decided to leave it as is because I was going to do something with them more. But one of the things that I was kind of learning, if I liked it and it wasn't complete, that didn't really matter. I could just walk away. This is probably my most favorite spread in this entire thing. When I first set it up, like I said, I had a set palette in mind, and these were the colors that I had. They were a mix of Magello, Winsor & Newton, Core watercolors, and I wanted to see what range of colors I could get from my original ones. So these are the originals down here, and these are all the mixes that I created using this with that color, with that color, with that color, with that color, all the way down, and then I mixed all of the colors with my black to get really neutrally tones, and it's very aesthetic to me. I'm very happy with this one. This was done with the Zig Clean Clear brushes. I wanted to paint some pumpkins with them. I was in a little bit of a doodly mood and went right into pumpkins. I will mention that I did start this in October of last year, not like the beginning of the year. I did start it when I got it, just because truthfully I didn't really think that I would finish it. I do go through sketchbooks semi quickly, but this was actually probably one of the biggest undertakings that I've ever done, to get myself into drawing more, to letting loose more, not being so worried about the outcome. You know, and being okay with coming back to a piece, not having to worry so much about, okay, I have to get this done and I can't finish it ever again. Well, no, if you finish, like, if you can't work on the sketch or don't want to work on the sketch, come back to it, flip to a different page and start again. This here is one of those ones that I was talking about at the beginning that I did directly copy. I can't find the artist that I found these ones off of. There is another one coming up that I will mention. If you do know, please link it down below and I will add it in. I couldn't find them, but I did draw this myself, obviously. It just based off their idea. And then more flowers. I did a ton of swatching these beginning pages. This was the other one that I wanted to mention. This was the other one that I took the inspiration from. But I did a ton of flowers. I was really trying to perfect my floral technique after watching, I think her name is Jolie on Instagram, and she has a YouTube as well. She creates the most beautiful floral illustrations, and I'm always really inspired by watching her, so quite a few of what was in here was based off of her technique, I guess, and me trying to, you know, figure it out on my own. This was actually kind of fun. This was on a particularly slumped day. I wanted to create almost like a chalkboard type effect, so I slapped down some black gouache, and then I used my Posca pens, which are these pens right here, and created this kind of chalkboardy effect. It's something that I wouldn't mind trying again. Again, another palette clean out. I really like the aesthetic of doing these patterns. Like, I didn't let any colors dry when I was doing it. I just kind of slapped it on and let myself go wild, so to speak. I really like this one, this really sparkly flower. This is another one I added on the leaves, some golden leaves. One thing I did notice as well with this paper, and you'll see it coming up soon, some of the mediums that use, some pens actually, like, the ink in the pen actually distorts the paper and it goes through several sheets, and I'll point out to where I'm talking about. You can't really see it on some of the ones that I have here, from the camera angle anyway, but like, for example, on this one, it has some back through over here, so that's why I just kind of did it with the same pen on the other side. But it was the weirdest thing, because it wasn't even like it was a pen that should have been too thick. Like, I don't know, it was the weirdest thing. I'll point it out when it comes up, but Hobonichi paper, Tomo River paper, is very, very odd. One other thing that I did really like about this is I did a lot of concept art in here, which is something that I didn't used to do a lot of before. I would always just go ham on the page that I'm working on, but this allowed me to plan out some stuff that I wanted to work on and transfer them into my other sketchbooks. I really like these ones. I like the aesthetic of these colors together, yellow and purple, or like a grungy yellow. More flowers. Some of these were just on days. Like, I'm just trying to remember now, like, when I did these, because I didn't do this book completely in order. So just trying to remember, like, what was fueling certain pages. Again, just trying to smush stuff together on some of these. This was one that didn't work out so well, but I kind of liked how it looked, so I just left it, because some of this just wasn't wet enough on this side, and it didn't transform fully. But I think that's kind of cool in its own way, but maybe that's just me. It's probably just me. I like this too. This was fun. Do you ever do this kind of art where you just take markers and draw circles? I've done it a couple of times in here, and I was really fond of that process. Okay, so this is the beginning of the portraits. Like I said, this entire thing was done of portraits, but in like body art or body art of the body and whatnot. It wasn't done straight through, so art that's on this side of the page isn't going to be necessarily as old as this one or newer or whatnot. So don't take this as this was done first and this was done second, because completely not the case. When I was first doing this, and one of the biggest things that I learned at the beginning of this is I am not traditionally someone that can do just a sketch. I like to do fully formed art for the most part, but this actually taught me the joy of just leaving something with a sketch or just doing a little bit of marker over it to create a background, you know, letting the background of the back page be an inspiration to the front. I really like the fact that the pink from this page affected the fact that this almost looked like she had flowers around her, and let that become a thing, because like I was doing a ton of fully formed paintings, which was great because, you know, I was still painting, was working, but you also wear yourself down a lot when you're doing that many and trying to do one a day. So very quickly I was learning, I really like that one, not to worry so much about that and just to enjoy the process. If I was feeling like doing a full drawing or if I had the time, do it. If not, then just let it be, because one of my biggest things that I was doing when I was working on this is I did it straight through and then came back and did the sparring ones I hadn't filled out. So it allowed me to come back to say like this drawing that I never finished, and if I was inspired to finish it then, I could do that. This was the one and only time that I used alcohol-based markers in this because I was curious, and as expected, it bled right through. So don't use Copic marker, kids. It'll bleed through just like you'd expect. This was a weird day. I was like, I'm going to do a whole bunch of little faces. I'm trying to remember who does this, and I want to say it was Windy Iris, I think is her name. I was watching one of her videos and I'm like, yeah, we're going to try that. We're going to take this on, and no, it's not pleasing to me to do, so didn't do it again. You will notice, if you're one of those people, some people like really notice this kind of stuff, these pages are taped together. That's just because what's underneath it is something that I just didn't want to expose, because it's a little bit more of a personal, I guess, drawing in there, so didn't want to share that. I really like this. I like this kind of art. It's very different for me, but I really like it. This here was an unintentional spread. I did this one originally. I went back to it probably 6, 7, 8, 9 times, and then I decided to recreate it here. And I hadn't even been thinking about it, but when I was doing it, I actually used the exact same materials, and I decided to create the blocks and stuff looking at this one. And I really like the way that they look together. This one was done just taking the pen in and drawing with it. And what I learned from there, I took into here. But I did do pencil lines on this one, not intending for them to be companion pieces. But I like the fact that they turned out to be. And this was another one of the ones that, like, I worked on it and I debated finishing it. But then I looked at it and I felt done, so I just stopped. This was another one. I want to just briefly mention that if you see this line across the eyes, it's not me trying to be deep or anything super cool like that. I screw up on eyes a lot, and it's just, again, something that I work towards fixing. But sometimes I just can't correct it, or I was in the mood I didn't want to correct it, so I just take whatever color and go across the eyes. It'll happen a couple of times in this sketchbook. It's, again, not me trying to be deep. I just didn't want to have to look at this cross-eyed person. This was another attempt at doing the chalkboard. I had tried it with the drawings back there, and I wanted to do it again with a portrait. Not 100% happy. I should have used the gouache again like I originally did, but I had black watercolor sitting on a pan that I wanted to get used up, so maybe I could reuse the pan. But unfortunately it didn't create it dark enough, so I wasn't really able to do what I intended. So this will be a revisited concept, I think. Okay, so again, I screwed up on the eyes, but remember how I had referenced before that ink acts weirdly on this page? This is what I'm talking about. So this is what I went across with, and it was just a normal Faber-Castell pen. I use my Faber-Castells on like everything, but it literally picks up and creates this weird yellow line through like several drawings, I think. And this is just tissue because I didn't want this to rub off on this drawing, but it lasts quite a while till about here. So that was like almost 10 drawings that this thing went through. So test your markers. That's one thing I really learned with this, is test your supplies before you use them on here, because that was the weirdest effect, and I've never seen a marker do that on another piece of paper, especially not my Faber-Castells, which I use all the time, that are my trusty go-to. Love my Faber-Castell Pitt pens. So anyway, don't know what happened there. Let's continue. I really like this one too. I like how I imagine her face in my mind. Is how this kind of comes out to me. This was another cute one. I feel like I was really channeling, like, I don't know why I feel like Legend of Zelda, but that's what I'm feeling. That's me trying to attempt to draw someone who looked kind of like a puppet. Again, not truly sure some of these days that what I was drawing or why I was drawing it that way, but that's okay. This was actually kind of an interesting experiment. I drew this one first, drew this one second, because I wanted to kind of see if I could, and I was holding the pen like this to see how my hand would react to a different position, drawing something that was very free-handed to begin with. Like, this was another one of the ones that I just did in ink after a quick pencil sketch, and I decided to color it in. And it's, you know, I like this one obviously a lot better. In my personal opinion, I think it's a lot better, but this one was kind of an interesting experiment, drawing something with a different hand and seeing the different look that you would get just based on how your hand was. So definitely something I recommend trying, because it's quite freeing in a way. Flowers. You'll see quite a few of these in this book. I really love drawing people in sweaters and jackets from the side. I think it's such an aesthetically pleasing pose for a lot of people, especially if they have like leggings with some flats or with some cute boots. So I googled quite a few different images, and you'll see them throughout this entire sketchbook. I really like that pose. I think it's very aesthetically pleasing. This one was actually a fun one here. I did this with gouache and a little bit of watercolor. It held up really, really great. So if you're worried about using gouache in your Hobonichi, use it. Like, this paper was, despite the fact that it was very weak, it was very strong, if that makes sense. If you let your layers dry, you tend to have a much better result. This was kind of the start of what I was hoping to be a strawberry girl, but I wasn't really liking how the foundation of it was going, so I kind of moved on. I didn't really get to revisit the idea, but I think it was a cute little one anyway. Companion pieces again. Drew a girl with a tendon of flowers, and I had drawn it kind of flowing through here and decided to use that extra space just to draw her from a different perspective. A lot of them in here as I went, because I did this side and then went back and did this side for the portrait portion of this. Anyway, I turned a lot of these into companion pieces, and it wasn't something that I intended to do from the get-go. It was just something, as I was inspired, flipping back through, kind of happened. This was another one that I want to mention that I did get inspired for. I did see a picture on, I think it was like an ad or something actually, maybe. And they had done the background circle in, I think it was maybe gouache or Posca or something. And they had created the same look through her shirt, but everything else wasn't colored in. I took that again for my own inspire for the day, because I really liked the concept and didn't want to lose it. So, again, being fully transparent with you guys. This is my favorite side pose ever. I struggle like nobody's business when it comes to drawing side pose. I find like the planes of the face are very difficult for me at that pose. So I was really, really proud of the fact that this actually came out really, really nice right here. So just a little personal information on my struggles and my successes. Again, Another cute little companion piece. I really like this one, and I'm going to make it a fully formed drawing, I believe. Basically, I had drawn this one here of a girl who's going to be giving over a flower. And then I started drawing a piece here, and I had her kind of with her arms out. But I thought it'd be cute if she was already holding a flower and went to take the flower being given, even though she already had one herself. So I thought that was kind of a cute concept, so I sketched it out, did a little bit of concept piece. A little bit of a mermaid. I really liked doing a lot of just drawing with my paints and then either sketching underneath like I did here, or letting myself just use the paint and create quick sketches without having to do lines, especially to kind of force myself to do a little bit more quick work versus spending too much time on every little sheet, I guess. This was another fun one too. I bought this pen, and of course I can't seem to see where I put it because I did have it on my desk, but it was by Marvy & Co, and it's just like this black brush pen, and it bleeds so much if you put water on it, so don't use it for water. But if you do, I scribbled it down on a piece of acetate when I was practicing, and I noticed it created this beautiful gray tone, and I tried to use it here for a quick portrait, and I loved it. It's so pretty. It's like this beautiful blue gray. So if I can find a link to it, I will link it down below. I totally recommend it for doing gray portraits in ink because A, it'll be permanent once it's dry, but B, it was such a beautiful thing to handle when I was using it, just to see it bleed out. It was so therapeutic. I can't even explain to you. I apologize if some of these are hard to see, but I did my best. I tried to get the lighting as good, but it seems to be okay in the camera. This was done actually with Tombows. I was really curious about just doing a very simple drawing with Tombows. Wasn't totally thrilled with how this one came out, so there is one that's going to be coming up that I say, remember the other one that I say copy, or that I redid, not copied, I didn't copy myself, but that I redid. This is the one I'm talking about because I wasn't fully happy with how this one came out. And I'm sorry, this is going to be like the longest video of life. These were fun. I took like a really cheap like aqua pen, and I just took the end of it and I did one line drawings just to kind of get my hand in movement, because this was around the part of the book where I'd already finished out all of this extra space that I left for creativity. So I started letting myself do it in this area. So there was a lot of just very quick, like this for example, and this, just having fun with it because I needed just to let my hand relax and get into the movement. This one here reminds me, I don't know if you guys follow Bailey J. She's like Canadian YouTube goddess. But she's a really amazing artist, and she did a 3 marker challenge like way back when. And she did this one that kind of looked like the She-Hulk, and I was watching her old videos when I was doing this, and I was really inspired by her She-Hulk, so I picked 3 colors, and I did the same thing. Just wanting to see how it would turn out, just again with the blue, the green, and the red, and I really thought it was kind of cute. Like, it was fun. Again, more of those sweaters that I'm really fond of. A lot of these, like this was kind of a phase where I was starting to go a little bit, not bored, but I wanted to pump through some quick sketches before I started doing anything too big, just because I was feeling like I was losing steam, and I thought if I took on too much, it would wreck everything. But I finally did this one. So this was the one that I just said that I would mention. I decided to redraw it without doing all the shading and draw it how I originally intended before I felt like it was a little bit too much. And this is a great example of just stop when you're ready, because I stopped as soon as I was done the lineup for the hair and the face, and I love it so much more than the other drawing because I let myself just be finished with it. I didn't have to push myself to do any more than I wanted to do. So super important just to let yourself rest. Don't force yourself to draw any more than you need or feel like you need to draw for the day. Like, I mean, it's 100% different if you're getting paid to do something and you make commitments. That's different. I'm not talking about that. But if art is your hobby or is something that you do for stress relief, don't make it any more stressful for yourself. Like, this isn't for anybody but you. This is for me. You know, I'm not making my career of drawing in a Hobonichi, so this one I'm actually really proud of. Again, like I said, I'm not the greatest at anatomy and stuff like that, but this was the first one that I did in this pose. It was a pose that I've wanted to do because I've always had this project in my mind of a mermaid project or a mermaid picture that I want to paint, and this was the first one. And then I practiced anatomy a little bit more throughout this entire thing. This was the recreation of it, and I can tell very well that there is a lot better overall anatomy to this one. It's not perfect, but this is a good example of how much practice will get you if you keep working at it. Don't let yourself, this one's cute, I like this one. Don't let yourself fall into the trap of, my drawing's not as good as someone else, you know, hers looks really good. You only see 10% of how much people actually do. You see the finished artwork. You don't see the struggle or the years, months, whatever that someone has put into creating and trying to, you know, build their aesthetic. So I think it's really important to kind of think about that before you put yourself down in that way, because they work hard as they can. You know, you got to put in that effort too. You got to make the effort, but you also got to kind of let yourself have fun with it. Don't be so worried about what everybody else is doing. You do you. You live your best life. This one. Again, this was another one of those one-line drawings that kind of went way wrong. I was doing that whole hand method again with that new one. We're just going to skip past that. And Tina Belcher, because I didn't intend it. I was drawing the glasses shape first, and I was like, why do those look so familiar? And I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to draw Tina Belcher in my sketchbook. So I drew Tina Belcher in my sketchbook. Did it help my anatomy or my portraits at all? No. Did I enjoy doing it? Yes. I really like this one too. This one I'm fond of, and I would like to revisit in the future. The one and only male anatomy that is in this entire thing. I typically draw females. Sometimes I will draw male faces, but I don't know. It's just my personal preference, I guess, is to draw women. This was definitely a couple of days of artist frustration. From here to here, for a couple of days I was trying. I got one of these done a day and then I walked away. I tried to kind of change my method up here. And then I finally kind of got a little bit more back into it around this stage. Started to feel a little bit more of my process again, and finally created some stuff that I was genuinely happy about. Took a break from the pencil on these ones and just decided to do some drawings for a couple of days that were just, you know, throw the paint down, see what happens. This actually reminds me, if you've played the Harry Potter mobile game, I think her name is Liz, I think, or Lizard, I don't know. But this reminds me of her from the game. I wasn't intending that, but looking on it now, that's where I feel like I'm getting that from. Again, just a few other ones. Again, I was just trying to get some of these done. Practice a male face on that one. I really like the posing of that one because I liked how I don't know if I'll get back to it, but how the body turned out, and I wanted to kind of envelop what kind of face he might have. So that's what I did here. I actually kind of liked it. I might draw men again in the future. We'll see. You know, no promises, no commitments. And I like this one. I want to do one where like it's kind of like an ever-ending face, and this was kind of the concept of that. And I really liked how that one turned out. Like you have your base face, and then you have like all the other people around it. I think it would be fun. But that was too big of an undertaking for this sketchbook, so didn't do it. I would need a much larger sheet of paper to accomplish that. But I think we're getting pretty close. I think we've only got 3 left. Yeah, so this was the very last sketch of the portraits, and then these last few pages are just going to be remains of the kind of work that I did at the beginning. tons of swatches and portraits, or florals. Using that same black pen that I mentioned, the Marby one, I did some of these really pretty florals. It was such a pleasure to use this pen. Like, I cannot wait to use it in future art. Did it again here. Did a little bit of a technique where I did the loose flower and then I used just the pen around it. If it doesn't bloom as much if it's not as dry, but it creates this really interesting texture that you can kind of see. It almost kind of like feeds out into the fibers of the paper. Some leafies, some florals. This was a pigment strength test that I decided to do in here. And then a little heart and a little "you did it," because I finished it. I was so happy that day, I can't even tell you. But it is done. It is complete. Over 500 pages completed in a year, not including like all the other sketchbooks and stuff that I filled out this year. I couldn't be happier. Thank you if you finished this journey with me. Let me know down below if you guys take on this kind of challenge every year. I will be doing it again next year in a little bit of a different way, but there'll be a separate video for that. Check out my social media and all that down below. Give this video a thumbs up and have fun creating, guys. That's my big message of the day. Have fun creating, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!